That's fun. That's hilarious.
exceptions. This class makes taking on high-level mobs or elites just look plain unfair, and it's all thanks to Warlock's most iconic ability and CC, Fear, a 1.5 second cast spell that will send an enemy running in a random direction for, well, who really knows how long. Fear could last for 1 second, or it could last for 30. Risk and reward at the end of the day is what Warlock is all about. Some enemies have high shadow resist and will break out of Fear nearly instantly, and of course the more damage the enemy is taking during the Fear, the greater chance it has to break. And that's even before you worry about whether random Fear pathing will lead a mob into chain pulling others, instead of going somewhere where you wanted it to. Elite quests in general though feel very accessible to Warlocks and are really part of the fun in playing a class which has such a reputation for being great solo. As for regular questing by yourself, Warlocks have to also be among the best. Once again, Fear is an invaluable tool that allows you to dot up one mob, fear it away and then have it gradually rot down whilst you focus your attention on another. It's a playstyle no other class can do, and it feels very satisfying to pull off whilst leveling. Or you can just play it safe and do one mob at once, which is probably a better idea when you're doing hardcore, to be fair. Getting the most out of your damage over time effects will also be a huge benefit to you, and something that you should actively improve upon as you level. A damage over time effect running its full duration is very mana efficient, and of course it being classic and there being next to no bonus spell damage whilst you're leveling, you have a pretty good idea of what a damage over time effect is actually going to be dealing in real time, and you should definitely use that to your advantage. So that's solo, but what about when you group up? How do Warlocks do there? I'd say they're solid and bring some good utility to a group as a whole. First of all, you can summon other players as of level 20. But in Classic, you have to be in the same instance to summon someone. So if you're in the stockades, the person you are trying to summon must also be inside the stockades. But if you're just outside the instance portal in Stormwind, you can summon a player from anywhere else in the open world, even from Darnassus in Kalimdor. Oh, and of course, 1 shard in Classic equals 1 summon, and you need 2 other people to perform each summon. All the same, Classic's world is really big, and it can save you so much time playing a Warlock, even though you already know everyone's gonna be expecting you to run to the instance first to summon. Whilst waiting for your group members to arrive at the instance, inevitably, you can also begin to farm shards, because you can bet everyone wants a health stone in hardcore, and you have to make them individually and hand them out because there's no soul well and they are unique items. Did you know Warlock is one of the least played
Drop.
Look, sun's rising. Looks sort of angry.
play classes at 60. Surely it's just because they're deceptively challenging to level. Nothing else at play here, right? Don't get me wrong, all this Warlock stuff is really good utility to have in a group, but in Classic it is just incredibly inconvenient and time consuming to do, but hey, it is what it is. As part of a group, you do have some other useful buffs at your disposal though, more than you would expect. Detect Invisibility is very good in some late game dungeons such as Strat Undead or Diamol West. Both of these have invisible mobs patrolling all over the place. For me, the Imp is the go-to pet for dungeons. It both gives Blood Pact, which is a nice extra buffer of stamina, as well as Fire Shield, which reflects a bit of damage when players are hit. Doesn't stack with Thorns by the way, but it's decent all the same. You can also subjugate demons to have them aid you in combat, banish elementals or demons, and dramatically slow the cast speed of enemies with Curse of Tongues. If you needed an interrupt, a bonus stealth detection, or dispels, bring out the Fell Hunter. You need single target CC at range. You can use the Succubus for that. This class has so much varied utility, it almost feels like a support class that can do respectable damage as well. The reasons I've marked the Warlock down in group content is applications for all this utility tend to be very niche, and damage over time effects tend not to be the most efficient in group content where they rarely get the benefit of their full duration. Oh, and also the healer of the group may not appreciate you using their mana bar as a bonus mana bar for life tap, even though it totally is. All the same, Warlocks in groups, can't really go wrong with them. Which brings us to survivability, an area of the game where there is quite a bit to say. So turns out for a class with a pet, which is great at soloing stuff, Warlocks die a lot. In fact, based off of data from the Deathlog add-on, Warlocks are the least represented class in the game at 60. Here's a snapshot from the 7th of June, covering just under 81,000 character deaths. Warlocks have the lowest average level of death at 12.4, and are the only class in the game with less than a 60% chance to even make it to level 10, and by some margin they're only at 55.3%. Warrior, which is more than twice as popular as Warlock compared to the total number of deaths, has a way better chance of not just hitting level 60, but higher level milestones in general. Every single non-faction specific class in the game has better recorded success stats in the hardcore challenge than Warlock. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is if you want to play something easy, go pick a warrior. If you want an actual challenge, level a Warlock. Alright, memes aside though, for real, why are so few people finding success on this class? Well, there's the thing about pressing life tap a bit too much and your Voidwalker not exactly being the most reliable tank that we've already gone over. On top of that, if mobs actually start hitting you on the Warlock, you are so squishy. Mages can kite forever through their frost spells and have blink. Priests can shield and heal themselves. Warlocks have fear, maybe drain life, sacrifice. Also being a pet class, there's a pretty good chance you've not been leveling your defense. I know I go on about defense in these videos, but if your defense is 15 levels or more off its cap at any given level, you'll be vulnerable to crushing blows from mobs the same level as you, meaning they are often going to deal 150% of their normal melee damage. You do have demon armor to beef up a little bit, but you're still just taking so much damage if anything gets to you. Saying that, you do have options for survivability, and probably more than you would expect. Fear or Howl of Terror are the obvious ones here, as they will force one or more targets to run away somewhere. There's two other things to know about fearing enemies though. It increases their movement speed by 25%. On most mobs, this is just about noticeable. Certain enemies, however, have completely insane movement speed modifiers by themselves and will do a Usain Bolt impression if you fear them. The other thing to know is that you can turn fear on and off without having to break it. Curse of Recklessness makes the target immune to fear, so you can fear them, have them run away, apply Curse of Wreck, they will run back to you, and then you can swap to a different curse before they reach you and they will run away again. This is called fear juggling. Curse of Recklessness will also stop mobs from running in fear at low health, so there's less risk of them chain pulling. Water breathing is another good tool you shouldn't forget about, and it also gives the Warlock something useful to buff other people back with for a change. If using a Voidwalker and you rip aggro off them and your health bar is not looking so hot, don't hesitate to use Sacrifice. This provides a huge shield which in most cases will give you more than enough time to either run away or finish the fight. Resummoning another Voidwalker is not as bad. As starting again, that's for sure. You eventually get Death Coil at 42, which is another great instant heal and a horror effect. Shadow Ward is another good spell, plenty of shadow damage threats in Classic, don't forget about this. And another one not to forget is Spellstone. You rarely think about this, but it's held in your offhand and when used will dispel all magic effects on you, as well as providing a large shield against further magical damage. It is niche use, but could be the difference maker, especially versus elementals whose melee attack often deals magic damage corresponding to their element. Oh, and of course there's Healthstone. Always have a Healthstone ready, obviously. I think all in all, Warlocks do have quite a few tools to survive. It's just the overconfidence of pulling multiple mobs or an over-reliance on your demon to do the heavy lifting, often proving fatal. So is the Warlock fast to level then? Well yes, but only if you are willing to take on the risks that entails, such as juggling mobs with fear and balancing your health and mana as well as that of your pet. or you can just take it slow and let your Voidwalker build some aggro and then use dots and wand away. It will vary on playstyle and how you go about playing your Warlock, but there is something about this class that just makes people want to go fast. Leveling speed wise, Warlock can be anywhere from moderate to really fast. Which brings us to talents, an area of the game where I think there are two choices to be made based upon your preference. There is a more traditional Voidwalker pet tank spec where you use dots and wanding, or something called drain tanking, where as the name suggests, the Warlock themselves is the one taking hits. Let's start off with a Voidwalker build, which will be the Demonology focused specialization that goes all the way down to Soul Link. Keep in mind you don't get your Voidwalker until you've completed a quest at level 10, so up to that point in time, you'll be using the much higher damage but way more fragile Imp. Also in Classic, Corruption has a 2-second cast baseline, so one of the first things we want to do is get it back to instant cast. Also, we pick up 3 points in Suppression early, as it will give your Affliction spells, which include things such as Drain Life and Fear, a much better chance to hit. After that, over in the demo tree, you pick up extra stamina and improved Voidwalker, so its taunt feels a little bit better. Then Fell Domination into Master Summoner, allow you to get a second demon out fast if you need it. This can be useful in a bad situation, where you've sacrificed one Voidwalker, and then need to get out another one. Master Demonologist gives you and your demon a unique effect depending on which one you're using. With Voidwalker it's 10% less physical damage, which is really good. After that you pick up Demonic Sacrifice, which you'd only maybe use in dungeons before finally getting Soul Link. Soul Link in Classic redirects 30% of damage taken by the Warlock to your demon and increases the damage of both by 3%. This is the defining talent that makes Demonology known for being a tanky Warlock spec. Just keep your demon alive or you're going to go back to being incredibly squishy. After that, it's over into the Affliction tree to pick up some talents to improve the effectiveness of your damage over time effects. This is the slower and more patient build. Even with you speccing into improving your Voidwalker, at times its threat generation will feel bad, and if you get some crits, expect mobs to come running straight for you all the same. The thing is about this spec is you do need to be in that slow and steady mindset. If your demon dies and you can't summon another fast, you could be in big trouble. This build should be safer than the alternative, but then again Warlocks should in theory be one of the easier classes to level, and they just aren't. Personally, I like the alternative spec that I'll go over here. I will say it has a much harsher learning curve during the early and most dangerous levels, but once you get the hang of it, it's considerably faster than the Demonology build, and I think it's just as safe, if not safer, because you will be leveling your defense. So this will be roughly the build we'll be looking at for drain tanking. Now the whole idea behind drain tanking is that you have an offensive pet which takes some damage during the start of a fight, then soon after the Warlock takes threat and mainly deals damage through casting Drain Life and just face tanking. The main demon you'll want for this build is the Succubus, however you don't get them until level 20 through a pretty long quest chain. Prior to that it's either going to be using the Imp or a Voidwalker. Also, drain tanking both needs a decent rank of Drain Life learned, as well as some points in the Fell Concentration talent, or you just lose too much mana from spell knockback. I wouldn't use rank 1 of Drain Life with this build, it's just very mana inefficient for what it does. At rank 2 Drain Life learned at level 22, you can consider starting to use it. To be honest, your Succubus will be carrying most fights and doing more damage than you at this level though. By level 26 you'll have 5 points in Fell Concentration and should be drain tanking. And by level 30 you get rank 3 of Drain Life and the build really starts to scale up from here onwards. In the talent tree at this point you go 5 out of 5 into improved Drain Life. Nightfall is optional, I wouldn't consider it, you just don't need the extra damage from the random Shadow Bolt. And then into Siphon Life and Shadow Mastery for tons more damage and self heals. Finally Dark Pact at 40, which turns your demon into your own personal mana battery. After that it's pretty standard talents in the demo tree to improve your tankiness. The big problem with drain tanking is getting to a level where it starts being effective in the first place, but if you get far enough, your first respec is only 1 gold, so it's at least worth a go to see what you think. On to abilities then. Warlocks have an absolute ton of them to cover, so what's good and what's not so good? As per usual, green is a level up where possible, yellow is optional or don't fully level, and red is avoid. The spells in green all feel pretty standard to me, including Fellsteed. Remember, Warlocks get a free mount at level 40. That's a pretty amazing gold saver, and really nice to know that you will have a mount waiting for you. Dreadsteed is on the list too here. That is from a big quest chain at level 60, so don't expect to hit level cap and walk into an epic mount straight away. Shadow Bolt and Drain Life will depend on what specialization you're playing. If I was drain tanking, I wouldn't bother with Shadow Bolt all that much, to be honest. Plenty of abilities are optional to max out, such as Hellfire or Rain of Fire being more group focused too. Then there's Curses of Shadows, Curse of Elements, Weakness, Drain Mana, Soulfire, Searing Pain. A lot of things you could get by without, but you can put ranks in them if you want to. Drain Soul rank 1 is fine for what it does, it just gives you soul shards. And Howl of Terror rank 2 fears for 15 seconds instead of 10, but does not fear additional targets. Of course, Soulstone is not very useful when you're playing a hardcore character. If you die, no comebacks. Firestone is just weird. I'm not sure what it's meant to be. It does increase your fire damage by a little bit, and also adds a fire damage proc to your main hand, so fire melee warlocks, that one's for you I guess. Inferno both involves doing a very dangerous quest, and summons a highly unpredictable demon. Ritual of Doom is the exact same, but even worse. Oh, and Ritual of Doom also sacrifices one of the people taking part in it, so probably not a good idea to do this. And though you may have been saving gold on not having to buy a mount at 40, what you do have to buy is grimoires to upgrade your demon's abilities. So which ones are a priority? Depends on your demon of course, but here's what I would do roughly speaking. The Imp for me is the early game demon and the one you use in dungeons. In dungeons I don't actually have it attack because they're just so fragile, they die to absolutely any AoE whatsoever, and they can be just as useful sitting in phase shift where they are immune to everything. Also your Imp is free mana for Dark Pact as well. So based on that I would teach them phase shift, ranks of Fire Shield and Blood Pact. If using a Voidwalker as your main pet, you'll want to be upgrading its abilities a whole bunch. Priority on upgrading Torment and Sacrifice as your Voidwalker's two best abilities. Suffering is a 2-minute cooldown AoE taunt which can be quite useful but uses a ton of your Voidwalker's mana. Consume Shadows converts your Voidwalker's mana to health really inefficiently. Voidwalkers struggle for mana in general and need it for taunting, so this just isn't very good. If you want to heal your Voidwalker, Health Funnel, Bandage, or just summon a new one. On the Succubus, always take Lesser Invisibility, it just keeps your pet from accidentally pulling things. Lash of Pain is okay, it doesn't really do much damage for the mana cost, and I'd rather have that mana for Dark Pact, so I just take early ranks. Seduction is good, pick that one up. And Soothing Kiss is one you can avoid. If your demon really needs a threat reduction, something's probably going wrong somewhere. On the Fell Hunter, always take Paranoia and at least one rank of Devour Magic and both ranks of Spelllock. Further ranks of Devour Magic heal the Fell Hunter for more when they consume a magical effect, which is nice but not a big deal, and Spelllock rank 2 increases the lockout duration from 6 seconds to 8. Tainted Blood just kind of doesn't really do anything in PvE. Your Fell Hunter is absolutely not holding threat if you're using it as your main demon, so you can skip this one. Let's finish on some macros and add-ons. First of all, you need to be able to control your demon well. Normally in the game, pet attack is shift plus T, but you can rebind it in a macro with /pet attack. Also, you want something to be able to pull your pet back if needs be. You can either do this with /pet passive or via changing your keybinds directly through the tab labelled action bar under the keybinds menu. If you scroll down a bit, you'll see the pet action button binds. Whilst you're there, also unbind control 8, that's pet aggressive, not something you want to accidentally turn on when playing hardcore. You're going to be wanding, so of course, cast shoot, so you accidentally don't toggle your wand on and off, and you can put a bunch of your demon abilities on the same macro just to save some bar space and have them all keybinded together. As per usual, two real go-to weak auras on casters. First of all, one of them to show debuff timers. You want to track your damage over time effects. There's many ways to do this is just one of them. And Nan Shield will track your sacrifice shield. If you sacrifice your Voidwalker, something's probably gone wrong and you would want to know how much shield you have left. And that for me is the Warlock in Hardcore WoW. Definitely a class which is proving to be more of a challenge to level than you would have expected it to be, but one that can bring so much utility and has a truly unique way to level through drain tanking. Let me know your thoughts on the Warlock in Hardcore Classic, whether you've given it a go, and if you found it to be as difficult as it's being made out to be. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all on the next one very soon.
Matthew Mercer. I'm the Dungeon Master for this leg, the next leg of Force Grey's adventure. We have a fantastic set of players here to join us for this little endeavor. So let's go ahead and do a quick round of introductions so you know who will be playing. To the left, we have...
Hi, I'm Joe Manganello, and I will be playing Toragar Steelfist, a.k.a. Toro.
I'm Deborah Ann Wall, and I'll be playing Jamila.
My name is Matthew Lillard. I'll be playing Beetle.
My name is Ashley Johnson, and I am playing Dagny Halvor.
My name is Kate Welch. I'm playing Rosie Beestinger.
Was what?
Rosie Beestinger.
Nice.
Thanks, Matt.
Oh, be ready. All righty, so let's go ahead and bring ourselves down into Waterdeep. Nearly 6 months have passed since the terrible machinations of Acerak and his soulmonger deep beneath the jungles of Chult were thwarted, though at great cost. The bodies that could be recovered from within the deadly tomb were returned to Waterdeep and revived under the directive of the Open Lord, Silverhand. Recovery following the resurrection was slow, and the ranks of Force Grey were disseminated back into the Grey Hands for the time being. The weeks passed pleasantly, leaving the sprawling streets of Waterdeep, the city of splendor, churning away at business as usual. Jamila, in particular, adapting to this urban environment has been a unique challenge. Having grown up in the dense southern jungles of Chult, you stumble through social nuance and the mysteries of this northern land, failing to find any information about the few still missing compatriots that plucked you from Port Nyanzaru and pulled you into this larger, more dangerous world. Dagny, you've taken your time after the business with the Rod of Seven Parts to return to the repairs warehouse in the Seaward, alongside your hosts Ogden and his son Sebastian. You house internal conflict between the joys of the simple and tinkering life in the eyes of Gond the Wonderbringer, and missing the rush of adventure you tasted not but a year ago. Now, dusk has settled into the purples and blues of night, or reds and oranges as we now see on the stage. And each of you individually feels something thrust into your palm by a cloaked figure. You reach for them, demanding context and reasoning, but they vanish quickly as your eyes find the rolled parchment. Within, the mostly bare missive
No, I've
contains
just been
the
working
simple
on my
phrases.
base.
Cards room. The Green Mask Lodge.
Killed somebody yesterday, though.
Trades ward within the hour. The bottom is marked with a recognizable symbol of
Trying to
Blackstaff
secure
Tower.
the goods before you go on
Keep
the
that amongst
rampage,
yourselves.
brother.
Now, as you individually scatter into the now quickly darkening nighttime in the streets of Waterdeep, you eventually find this Green Mask Lodge you were guided towards. Entering the rather crowded tavern floor, the smells of burnt candle wax and old perfume mingle with the stench of sweat. Rowdy shipping hands and shady...
Be still, adventurer, and allow me to share with you something important to our people, but far from obvious. We are a proud race, and the war with the humans tried even Thrall's great patience. You see, our war chief is
Had to
wise
do
and
a
prudent,
safe
and
zone
he
trip to
continues to
go
put
sell a
his
bunch of
people
shit
first.
more
Ultimately,
base
he
building
is a
stuff, so
diplomat. And
this
in
is
his time
the
with the
non-exciting
humans, he
part
learned
of the
much of their
server.
ways. If the tale I've started piques your interest, then find Keldron near the western exit of the city. His hovel is there.
The humans of Hillsbrad have been putting up unexpected resistance. The problem appears to be that the townsfolk are being armed by the local blacksmith. We need to shut down all supply lines. Your mission will be to execute Blacksmith Barrington. Slay his apprentices as well. While there, bring back a shipment of iron from their stockpile. The supplies will come in handy when we are done with the conquering of Hillsbrad and begin raising South Shore.
Your renown as a warrior grows, adventurer. Now it is time to pit yourself against your peers and see where you stand. There is an island off the coast of the Barrens, south of Ratchet. It is called Frey Island, and it is a place where warriors meet. Meet and fight. Speak with the chief warrior of Frey Island, Clannock MacLeod. If he finds you worthy, then Clannock will lead you further down the warrior's path. To reach Frey Island, search for the sandbar shallows along the Merchant Coast.
The patrons watch you pass out of the corner of their eyes before returning to their laughter and revelry. You inquire with the haggard barkeep about the cards room and are pointed toward a corner staircase that descends into a basement chamber fitted with a large game table, a single oil lantern hanging above it to cast long shadows across the back walls. Sitting on the other side of this chamber is a stocky halfling fellow, his square chin matted with stubble. He glances up and offers a nod and a gesture to the first empty seat as you arrive.
Bhutani, noble adventurer. I am Keldron, student of magic and other mystical arts.
You have never met this halfling in your life, but if you want to describe what...
Bhutani, noble adventurer. I am Keldron, student of magic and other mystical arts. The business Craven sent you here to speak to me about requires a touch more subtlety than you've previously needed, but that does not mean you cannot still aid our cause. Please, make yourself comfortable, and I shall tell you why the war chief has need of my aid, and yours. It starts with appearances, adventurer. How the Horde sees itself. How our allies see us. And most importantly, how our enemies see us. As the Alliance progresses deeper and deeper into Kalimdor, incorrect conclusions may be drawn about the Horde making pacts with the Burning Legion. The War Chief cannot allow that to happen. And with his blessing, I am taking control of overseeing them removed. I have agents in the area of Desolus at the Ghost Walker post, north of the Great Kodo Graveyard. Head south of the Charred Vale in the Stone Talon Mountains, and you shall come across it. When you arrive, seek out Takata Steelblade. Go.
The Grand Isha Awak is lord of these waters. Great is his strength and solemn his pride. The humans on the coast fear him, for he has consumed many of their number. But I do not fear him. I am grateful he is here. He is a worthy challenge and honorable prey. If you are ready, then swim out and search for Isha Awak, the deep doom. His spirit dwells in his heart, and to hear its beat is to know your fate.
Adventurer, you have done well in helping me in the past. The War Chief is pleased thus far with what I've accomplished, and asks me to continue with renewed determination. My honor dictates that I give you proper recognition to the War Chief for all you have done, but first, I would ask you for your help again. Travelers recently came from the south from a place called Thousand Needles. There they killed a kobold who had an unusual ore sample, but they would not sell it. I want a sample of that ore to examine.
What Rosie looks like.
Oh, absolutely. So Rosie is, she enters this room and she has a quarterstaff, her staff of the master, which is at least twice.
Before we get into tonight's session, we do have some announcements to get through, beginning with our sponsor of the evening, NordVPN, with our local magician, Nordo the Magnificent. The Magnificent.
Yes.
Did I say it right now?
Yes, yes. Oui, monsieur. Nordo the Magnificent. The greatest magician.
Second greatest magician in the world.
Really? Really, Matt? Really? You're trying this shit with me tonight?
Yes.
The second greatest magician shit tonight? You, of all people?
Yeah.
Yeah, you. You have done great things to offend me. Do these look familiar to you?
Oh my god, you
Yeah, making bricks, baby. T3 doors. We out here.
Mages in vanilla are probably the
These are
most
the best
overpowered
doors you can
class
make,
in
so
the
it's
entire
nice to have the
game.
setup
They're the
in
best caster
Abyss.
DPS at endgame,
Before
incredible
this patch,
toolkit of
you had
burst
to
and
go find
CC
one
and
of these in the
PvP,
world and gather
unquestionably
all
the
the shit.
strongest AoE damage dealer, free portals and teleports to get around the world, free food and water, and hey, wouldn't you know it, they're pretty good at leveling too. Saying that, they are perhaps the only class in the game which has a totally unique way to level that nobody else can replicate. And whilst this video will focus on more the traditional way to level, we'll definitely be taking a look at the extent of what skilled players can pull off on the mage. So whether it's arcane, frost or fire, let's take a look at the mage in hardcore WoW. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor, Brilliant.org. Brilliant is an online platform aimed at teaching math and science subjects to people of all skill levels. Brilliant has a ton of different lessons, from everyday math to gravitational physics, quantum computing, and so much more. And whether it's picking up something new or ongoing learning, you'll be able to find something which suits you. What I like is that Brilliant splits often complicated subjects into smaller bite-sized pieces, so you aren't being totally overwhelmed by having too much information thrown at you at once. Take a course on neural networks and data science, for instance. I think we've all seen how powerful AI is starting to become these days, yet it feels as though there's still so much more to give in the space. Better understanding of what goes into that technology could open up opportunities you didn't even know existed. To try everything Brilliant has to offer free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/WillE or click the link in the description. The first 200 people get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Many thanks to Brilliant for the sponsor today. Let's get back to WoW. For a player starting off in hardcore, whilst I don't think mage is the safest class in the game, it's still a reasonably good starting point. If mages have two weaknesses, it's their incredibly low base health and the existence of a mana bar. Now, you could say every class with a mana bar has some kind of issue with running but some classes deal a portion of their damage as melee, such as a shaman, and aren't totally reliant on their mana. Some classes regenerate tons of mana during a fight, such as a priest, or can just turn health directly into mana as the warlock can. Mages run out of that blue bar, and unless you have a wand, that's kind of it. In time you will get evocation and mana gem to boost your mana pool back up, but you don't always